That's what I'm talking about. We ready to go. I'm your man, Rod Love, and hey, sitting next to me is the General, and welcome to Let's Talk Nation.
Once again, it's on, Brother Love. Hey, man, it's been a long time since we said this, man, but how you doing this weekend, man? What was this weekend like for you this weekend, man?
Man, it's just blessed, man, blessed, and I just say, you know, and I don't advertise this, I like to be in that space and place to where it's quiet and I'm staying still once a year. And that was, man, I was blessed to see another year this weekend, so.
I'm sorry. What you 42, 43? What you got?
Let whatever you say, that's what I am. hey, another year of it, man. But blessed, man, and my family just sat back, man, and let me do what I wanted to do. And hey, man, I'm here.
Absolutely.
How was your weekend, brother?
Listen, man, happy birthday to you, Brother Love.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate that, man.
I'm gonna say I had even friends was calling me, hey, the day Brother Love birthday. I was like, I know which man's birthday then.
You know, I was asking the question, Greg, because my phone started blowing up, and I don't tell folk, like I say, I like it to be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started asking. I asked my wife. I said, did you put something out there? Because you know, by mid-morning, man, I had a couple of hundred happy birthdays.
Nice.
And I was humbled by it, but I was like, how do these folk know that somebody done put something out there? But then, I guess it's that, what is that, Greg? That social media algorithm?
It automatically hits, man.
Yeah.
It automatically. So if you have your birthday on there, it automatically hits.
But I don't put my, you know, birthday on there. No.
Yeah, no, because I took all my stuff off it anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah. But listen, Brother Love, happy birthday to you, man. Hope that you had a great time with your family, and wishing you many, many more as always. But right now, if anyone are hearing these two voices, they're tuned in. The two of the most influential voices in Central Florida on Monday Night Podcast, Brother Love and Greg Jackson, the dynamic duo guaranteed to raise your IQ 10 to 15 points. And Brother Love on some nights we even get them up to 30.
Get them up to 30?
Get them up to 30. But listen, if you want to be a part of tonight's show, you want to call in, you want to talk to Brother Love and myself, all you have to do is hit 321-483-7002. Once again, that's 321-483-7002 to talk to two of the most influential voices in Florida on Monday Night Podcast, Brother Love and Greg Jackson. Brother Love, let's
get it on. Hey, Greg, talking about getting it on, man, are we going to tell folk about the special guest that we're going to have in the studio next week?
Nope.
Nope, we're not going to tell them?
Nope.
Hey, is that the cliffhanger deal?
Yep.
Just have them tune in and wait for it.
Yep.
But I will say.
I'm not giving up the beans.
Okay, not gonna give up the beans, but we're gonna have somebody up in here who we can refer to them as Your Honor. So leave it at that.
We're gonna leave it at that. Listen, you got to come back. You got to go to the podcast. You got to go to the website. You got to watch us and follow us on Facebook to know who we're gonna be bringing on. And Brother Love, you know, the other thing too is that. Last week, we were not on the air. We didn't get a chance to wish everyone a happy Memorial Day. And, you know, for all of our fallen soldiers, veterans, and sailors, and Marines, and their families, we just want to say that we memorialize them, we think about them, and we thank them for giving the ultimate sacrifice to keep this country free and safe. And so just want to say thank you for that. So.
Absolutely. But Greg, man, you know, in terms of recapping the past couple of weeks, man, what's been popping, man?
Well, I mean, the other thing, too, I don't know if folks know, but I want to say next week is the beginning of hurricane season. We know that Florida is very active for hurricanes, and so we want to make sure that folks out there in Let's Talk Nation, if you've been watching, Brother Love, what's been taking place in Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas City, with these tornadoes, this tornadic activity and the stress that they've been going through. Here in the state of Florida, we have hurricane season, and so we want folks to stay safe. I want to say that the tax-free season is coming up next weekend, and so for those, if you want to go out, get your generators, get your supplies, get your waters, get get everything that you need in order to be prepared. Because, Brother Love, I'm hearing that they're saying they're going to be onwards of 20 named storms, and named storms meaning that these are weather systems that have reached a certain level of severity.
So Greg, let me tell you something I'm upset about.
Uh-oh.
And it segues into what you're talking about.
Gotcha.
I got my my property insurance bill.
Mm-hmm.
Greg, that thing is, I remember, man, a point in time, man, when I built my home, my insurance for it was like $1,200, $1,500.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's triple that.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Huh, yeah, huh.
Yeah, like,
You know.
hey, you know who to call, right? Better talk to the elected officials. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it. We need to figure out what's going
But
on.
Greg, it's crazy because, you know, I've been shopping around
Right.
and it don't look like it's getting any better.
Well, I mean, you know, a lot of the insurance companies have stopped writing policies, particularly homeowner policies here in the state of Florida. You know, so much so that FIGA, Florence Insurance Group, the state insurance provider, has had to step in and provide coverages for certain folks. But yeah, Brother Love, when you are living in a paradise like the state of Florida, we have our troubles also, and those troubles come by the way of storms. We don't have earthquakes. You know, we have tornadoes every now and again. We don't really have like fires like they have out in California. You know, we don't have like the big waves and things like that, but we do have our weather system.
But Greg, let's break this thing down a little
Yeah.
bit because people talk about Citizens, right? And people don't realize Citizen is the insurance company of last resort.
Absolutely.
Of
They don't
last
understand
resort.
that. You're right.
And so when people ask the question, what does that mean?
It means that what happens if you're unable to purchase insurance through the traditional marketplace, or, Brother Love, the other thing too is that if your insurance company has become insolvent.
And I'm glad that you're going there
Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
need to break this thing down.
Yeah.
Becoming insolvent, but then on top of that, Greg, Citizen, again, is the insurer of the last resort. But when you look at insurance companies that are pulling out of the state of Florida, and then Citizen, because it's last resort, having to write those policies, now you see some insurance coming back.
Right.
And now you see Citizen unloading some of those policies, and I will sit back and say, I'm not necessarily all that happy with the fact that in the process of unloading some of those policies, because if Citizen continue to build itself up to
Right.
the point
Right.
that they're having to go ahead and pay those claims, and they find themselves getting to a point where they don't have the liquidity
Right.
to do that. That's why you're offloading to other insurance companies. But the other side of that is, and I love the fact that the marketplace will bring to bear what it will, but that's part and parcel of some policies going down, but some policies going up too.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Brother Love, as I said and I think about it, what would help and what would benefit citizens and these other carriers that are looking to insure people here in the state of Florida. You know what it needs?
What's that?
It needs Obamacare.
Come on, Greg. So no, you.
Citizens need Obamacare.
Hey, and Obamacare
It
means.
needs an Obamacare type of system to where it can get, people can get insurance no matter what.
But mentioning that, Greg, on the real,
Yeah.
you have more folk in the state of Florida that have embraced and actually gotten health insurance through that process.
No.
And we call it Obamacare, but the original name of it was Affordable Care.
Yeah.
And it was done underneath Obama
President
administration.
Obama, yeah, that's right. And apparently, Joe Biden, who still thinks that Obama is his boss, or Joe Biden has continued Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act. So you're right. I mean, people have been able to get coverage under that.
So Greg, I know you threw that out there, but do you think there's a balance, man, that could, because people are actually being priced out of their homes when you look at property taxes and when you look at property insurance for folk who worked all their lives, man, to be able to afford to purchase their home. Now they're still becoming unaffordable because now you got folk that are on fixed income, and your homeowner's insurance is double and in some cases possibly triple. Your property taxes are going up because the value of your home is going up.
Right. And Brother Love, it's interesting that, not knowing that we would have this specific conversation tonight, but that kind of takes me to the mindset of why home ownership is not as coveted as it was when we were coming up. You want to buy your house, you want to have a home, you want to have your white picket fence and things like that. And more people are opting out of home ownership for these very reasons. Number one, they don't want the responsibility of having to repair a home after a catastrophe or after a hurricane or a tornado. They don't want the responsibility of having to pay taxes on this piece of property. They don't want the responsibility of, if I can't get this thing insured, how am I going to make it, or how am I going to make sure that things are covered? So,
But how do you balance that? How do you balance that by saying, okay, the tax benefits far outweigh paying the rental cost to help increase somebody else's wealth?
You know, it depends. It depends. There are a lot of people out there who say that by renting, they're able to have more disposable income. And so, you know, if they're not having to take that money, if they're able to take that money and they're truly using it to put money into an investment vehicle, then they may be better off by doing that than waiting for some form of tax benefit at the end of the year.
And it comes down to lifestyles too.
Lifestyle, that's right. That's
Hey,
right.
if you're joining Let's Talk Nation, hey, we want to make sure that you can join the conversation. That number is 321-483-7002. Once again, that phone number is 321-483-7002.
But listen, brother, just kind of going back to our recap, you know, we have someone that's coming in next week, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, all jokes aside. But, you know, we are quickly coming into election season. And for some municipalities, we are actually in election season. We're going to talk a little bit about District 5 here in Orlando, Florida. But for those candidates who are out there, and there are a number of them out there who are looking for a place to express your platform or discuss your platform, get a chance to meet and talk to people that are within your area. We are going to be inviting candidates for various offices, whether it is state, county, city, or federal, to come and sit down and talk to us. Now, I got to let them know, brother, you know me. I got to let them know now. I'm a little bit of a snob, and I really don't talk to people who are not on the state or the federal level, so I don't want nobody to be offended. I'm just kidding.
Hey, but hey, to the general's point, and here it is, man, come in and go ahead and let the people know about who you are and what you represent versus us having to do it for you.
Absolutely. And listen, we've already had some folks to come in and sit down and talk to us. We had Mr. Arthur come in and talk to us a couple of weeks ago.
Candidate for Orange County District 1.
We actually had a candidate for District 5, Orlando District 5, and Tavares McCurdy to come in and sit down and talk to us. And we've also had other candidates in the past who've come and talked to us. Matter of fact, the first African-American female who was elected to the city council in Apopka is someone who has followed the show and has been a friend of the show. So, I mean, listen.
You got to tell her name now. You just can't go ahead and.
I mean, listen, Miss Nadia Anderson.
There you go. There you go.
But, you know, I mean, so listen, this is a friendly place. For as much as, you know, we may talk about politics and you may feel like we are not a friendly place. This is a very friendly place. We'll let you get your message out. We'll talk about you when you leave. How about that?
Hey, that's the general for you.
We'll talk about you when you leave. We don't talk about you while you're here. We'll talk about you
when you leave.
Yeah,
Hey, great. By the way, Representative Bruce Anton wanted to make sure that you knew that you had a personal invitation from him to attend the prayer and leadership breakfast, Unity in the Community. Where do we go from here? Wednesday, June the 5th. That's going to be from 8 a.m. to 9:30. It's going to be at Macedonia Missionary Baptist Church. And
where is that? What city is that?
The great town of Eatonville.
The historic town of Eatonville,
town of
Florida. Yeah, 1887. Don't forget it.
1887.
That's right. That's
So,
right.
so, Greg, you cannot say that I did not tell you because he told me to tell you about 3 or 4 days ago, and I said, you know what? Okay, Rep, I'll make sure he knows, but I'm telling you in front of our audience, so.
Yeah. Now you're going to embarrass me in front of all our friends.
No, I'm not. No, I'm just making sure.
You're going to tell me
Hey,
2 days before.
No.
So listen, Representative Anton, I'm going to move what I need to move from my schedule because Brother Love is just now letting me know. And because I have so much respect for you and the things that you do, I'm going to move what I need to move. Thank you a lot, Brother Love, for embarrassing me.
Y'all see how he turned that on me. Hey, by the way, man, a good friend of ours, supervisor of election, Glenn Galzine, man, had an absolute incredible swearing in, man, that took place last week. And it was just incredible. You had Lottery Secretary John Davis that spoke.
Okay, right.
You had former Representative Breezy, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. He's with Gunther, the law firm of Gunther.
That's where Derek Bruce is.
Derek Bruce is, you're right. He spoke, and I got to say, I was honored to say a few words.
Very nice, very nice.
But, man, it was just incredible. And Glenn, man, when you know his history, man, I tell you, to see his family there, Glenn has been proven everywhere that he goes.
To be success,
he was a school board member in St. Petersburg, Pinellas County. He was the president, CEO of the Central Florida Urban League.
That's right.
Glenn was appointed to manage and oversee Reedy Creek, and I mean, did a tremendous job, which subsequently became called the district.
That's right.
And then to be appointed as the Orange County, the first African-American Orange County supervisor of election. The guy, Greg, everywhere he goes, he puts that Midas touch on.
You know, Brother Love, let's unpack something real quick.
Okay.
Because as you just mentioned something, it makes me think about something else. Why is it here in Orange County, all right, and I know it's a lot of people that's going to be mad at me, and I'm fine with that because, you know, I carry that burden of being the person that people get mad at. I understand that. I'm fine with it. Why is it that over the past 5 years, when we talk about a first, in terms of African-American males, the only thing, or the thing that we have to attach to that is a Republican governor?
Greg,
Listen, I want people to hear me say that one more time. And I'm saying this because there was a time period where I personally felt that African-American males were, and I don't want to say under attack because I don't want to make this any more nefarious than what it is, but it's a question. I beg the question. Because there was a time when it appeared that African-American males were being shunned and looked to be replaced even within the Democratic Party. And I'm going to say that as a Democrat, all right? But when we talk about in Orange County and we talk about District 2, the first African-American male to serve as a county commissioner in that area is a gentleman sitting to my right who was appointed by a Republican governor, which is the former Honorable Rick Scott.
You're right.
Okay. Now, when we talk about the first African-American male who has served as the state attorney for the Ninth Circuit for Orange and Osceola County in the way of Attorney Bain.
Yes.
We're talking about being appointed by a Republican governor, Governor DeSantis. When we talk about the first African-American male to be appointed as, or to serve and or appointed as the supervisor of elections here in Orange County, we're talking about that person being appointed by a Republican governor, Ron DeSantis.
Can I put a comment in that real quick?
Put a comment.
Okay, here's the hook, Greg, and here's what I really want to emphasize. The folk that you just identified wasn't placeholders. When you look at State Attorney Andrew Bain, you look at what he's doing, his effectiveness. When you look at, you, Greg, you practice law, and hopefully I'll get this right, but Bain has instituted the grand jury actually making a decision when there's a use of force issue relative to law enforcement.
Right.
That's a first.
Right.
And I'm talking about these because sometimes when people hear this, and Greg, I'm going to go ahead and go all the way out there. When people that look like us hear this, and they think, okay, were they put there as ceremonial positions to do nothing? So I say that about State Attorney Andrew Bain because he's been effective.
Right.
Then I look at the Honorable Glenn Gelzine, and when you look at how effective he was managing Reedy Creek,
Right.
but then you also look at, man, the supervisor, first Orange County supervisor of election, as soon as he jumped in, Greg, he's already gone through the process of 3 elections, but get a hold of this. He is the first supervisor of election that actually people can go to their phones and look at the ballots being open.
Right.
Transparency.
But listen, and Dr. Flight, I'm going to turn it over to you for a second because I see you got your nice little, the Django hat on. We're going to let you talk with that hat on. But,
The Django?
but let's...
Hey, you got him. Hey,
why you
Doc,
gotta-
I didn't think about
hey.
that. Hey,
Hey,
You
you
got
gotta
the Django hat on.
hey,
That's
Jamie Foxx.
Yeah, man, that's the
Django.
Django. The
Hey,
Django.
Greg like
But
a
listen,
low-key
hold on,
roast.
Doc, I apologize, man. But listen, you and I'm gonna deal with you off air, Brother Love. As I done told you, it's the sad fault that won't
They don't leave me. I got you. I know where you're
You
going.
talked about, Brother Gelzine, you talked about Brother Bain, but you were the first in the line of those appointments to be made who were equally effective, if not more, in the county commission position as well. And the things that were done under your guidance and leadership, of course, with me giving you some, being in your ear, just joking.
And you were in my ear, though. I'm going to give it to you.
But those things too. But Doc, I apologize, man. What you got going on, man?
First of all, stop roasting me, man. Hey, my hat is the bomb. But listen,
No, I like it, bro. Hey, listen,
You know,
Django's
listen,
one of my favorite
I
movies, man.
complimented
I
him.
like it. I like
I
it.
complimented him on the 6 o'clock
hey,
show.
but here, think about this. Republicans are about competence. Democrats are about loyalty in Florida. And see, these Republicans are not appointing people based on race. They're appointing people based on their competency and their track record.
Right.
Democrats don't value that from the black community. They want loyalty and submission from the black community.
But is the black community demanding more from Democrats is the question.
No, because
Now listen, there's a shift, fellas. There's
Yeah,
a shift.
it's
I see a
starting
shift
to.
coming.
I tell you what, if the right person get on that Republican side, you'll see a stampede.
Yeah.
You will see a stampede.
But now, Doc, I got to say this now. For as much credit that I have given the Republican governors who have appointed these African American males, where in particular I saw that there was an effort in my mind to remove African American males on the Democrat side. I'm just going to be honest about it, where it seemed as if we didn't matter.
Well, you know why that is? You know why?
But listen. The Republicans, I believe, and tell me what you think about this. I think the Republicans right now are missing a tremendous opportunity to open up the doors to bring in more African Americans too, because a lot of people don't know what's taking place and how they are, like you say, Doc, they're looking at competency as opposed to just blind loyalty.
Right. And they are missing an opportunity because by and large, black people are inherently conservative in a lot of the things that we do and what we believe. You know, we believe in family, you know, even though that's not given to us, but you know, out of all the men, there was a survey done, out of all the men in America who are involved in their children's lives, black men lead the nation. It's a lot of things that assigned to us is not necessarily true. And think about the values that we three hold. We have some very conservative principles and values.
Hey Doc, you're going in and out a little bit, but here's the part of the show that I think, man, if you play that one reel and blow up on the screen so that Greg and I can see it, but our audience can hear it, this is a perfect segue to what took place with Stephen A. Smith.
Let me get it up here. Here we go.
Greg, thanks for plugging that, man.
And
Because what you about to see.
Caitlin is helping to grow the league. These women understand that she cannot be babied as a rookie. That's all I'm at.
All right.
Who talks about the WNBA? Who talks about women? Who talks about women's sports more than per se?
Stephen A., respectfully, with your platform, you could have been doing this 3 years ago if you wanted to.
Wow.
All right. We got to go. You guys.
So did you
You
see
know
that
you're my
type of show?
guy, but
Who does more than
Stephen,
us?
I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you.
Wow.
Don't do that. I'm talking to you about the
Oh, my
power that
Lord.
you have.
Okay.
I'm talking to
Okay.
you.
Okay.
It's-
Okay.
it's-
All right,
I
let's,
got
You're
it.
my guy, but
I
I'm
got
talking to you.
I got it.
guys. I really
You
appreciate
missed my girl. You missed a lot of episodes of First Take. You missed a
Okay.
lot.
Stephen A.,
Guys.
3 years ago,
I'll leave
you
it
would
at
not
that.
talk about the
Go
W
ahead,
at this
Molly.
level. Don't do that. Come on now.
guys.
Nobody was, Molly.
Guys,
The game.
Hey, and so Greg, here let me frame this up for you. She was having a conversation about Caitlin Clark being, basically pummeled in the WNBA. So Stephen A. Smith was having a conversation, and she came back full circle and said, Stephen A. Smith, you could have been using your platform 3 years ago to talk about women issues. And she said, welcome to a women's world. And Stephen A. Smith came back and said, no, welcome to the black man's world. And so and so the conversation, I mean, Greg, it's going like this.
Right.
And I understand that, I never understand what it's like to be a black woman,
Right.
but I do understand what it's like to be a black man.
Right.
And so what we just saw, man, was, and it's good that the conversation is taking place, but you look at Stephen A. Smith's face when she said that, and he is saying, who's been having a dialogue about women in the WNBA versus him, and she kind of went back and said, you could have been doing this 3 years ago, and Shannon Sharp started to inject to say, you're proving his point.
Right.
He's been having this conversation. Where you been?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and she was entirely wrong because he has been an advocate, and he's covered the WNBA for a while. Matter of
When
fact,
nobody else would
Right.
say frank and candid conversations about it.
right. And I've heard more about the WNBA through his show than anywhere else because he's talked about Candace Parker and all of these current batch of players and what they doing and how they how their careers are going on a regular basis. So I don't know. I'm like him. She must have missed a lot of his shows.
Hey, Doc, that reminded me of a classic Attorney Greg Jackson going all in when you looked at Stephen A. Jackson and he was like,
Smith.
Stephen A. Smith, and you looked at his face and it
Yeah.
looked like he was going to have one of those Attorney Greg Jackson shows. I got
No,
time
that
today.
was that. I was just getting ready to say that. He had that. I got time today. Look,
Yeah.
I got time today.
But,
So,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Doc.
again, this speaks to the contention there speaks to a larger social phenomenon that's going on between black men and black women. I'm telling you, that's an undercurrent that I picked up from a lot of what she was saying and how she was coming, because black women are, talking about the fact that they feel that black men don't support them, but black men are saying, wait a minute, we are, but we get the shortest end of the stick. Politically, in the workplace, we have to fight harder than anybody. And, and when we say that, we are poo-poo. No, you don't. Nobody has it harder than a black woman. Try being a black man in corporate America. There's so many booby traps and minefields you have to dodge and get around and still maintain your dignity as a human. That it's ridiculous. You have to learn how to play the game. That's why a lot of us don't go into corporate America.
I mean, think about, and I've heard about it from a lot of different angles, but think about as you're saying, Doc, the number of black men who have either been removed from or who have left corporate America stations, and why. And really and truly, when you think about it, when it comes to having a voice, let's talk about what we have right here. How many African American male voices do you have like this right now? That has the freedom to say and to discuss and to have conversations like what we have here.
In Central Florida, I know not many. It's I'm into human behavior, and I've been in situations where I have watched black men in somewhat way dumb themselves down in certain situations as not to present themselves as threat or potentially adversarial. They got to play a role. Okay, and a lot of them do it. That's part of that code switching that we do, living in America.
But Doc, and to Greg's point, and this is not about being competitive. This is about acknowledging our colleagues. And Greg, to your point, it's not a whole lot. You're absolutely right. But
Yeah.
I do want to point out, we have some great allies. One of our good friends, Greg, who owns The Wire. See, you and I, we got our own station now, so we can speak freely. But Paul Billings, who owns 98.1, I believe it is. I might be off a little bit, but The Wire FM. Paul is out there. I mean, every time Greg and I are talking about an issue that's touching nerves, Paul is putting us on his show. We also have another good friend, and boy, he lights it on fire, particularly with the new. Where I'm about to go.
Yeah, Don Miller
station that he's on, Florida Man Radio, and I'm talking about doggone Don Miller, the Don Miller Show. And so, Greg, it's not even a handful
Yeah.
of us.
Yeah, no, you're right, you're right. But listen,
And,
though,
and the problem is, let me say this, culturally, we are not accustomed to articulate black men who are able to articulate and argue the point in many situations. If you watch that, I mean, think about us. Now we get into some heated disagreements, but we don't ever get personal. It's
Right.
never mean spirited because we as men, we know how to accept that a person has a viewpoint. And so that aggressiveness, even if we have it there, we don't feel it's threatening to each other.
right,
You know, it's a way to have discourse and disagreement. And I can tell you that in corporate America, that's the boogeyman about black men. We'll blow up and get out of control. Because
Hey.
I've been accused of that when I wasn't being mean, I was being adamant and demanding accountability. Why are you mean? I'm not mean. I'm a supervisor, okay? That means that I have an expectation to perform. I used to tell my employees, you audition for your job every day.
Hey, but,
Okay.
but Doc, here's what I'm gonna go ahead and kind of help us move on from this, and I'll leave it on this note. You're right, Greg. There's a handful. The conversations that we have, this is full body contact.
yeah,
But the other side of it, and this is something that Paul Billings needs, that Don Miller Show needs, but also Let's Talk Nation needs. We also, and it doesn't matter what color you are, we also need that economic, that financial support. We have a brother here who owns one of, if not the largest Mercedes-Benz dealership. We need that advertisement. We got folk that we know that don't look like us, that got large businesses. We need that advertisement. What we need is the support.
yeah,
Right.
no doubt, no doubt.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
But you know, the other thing too, because we have some historic things that have been taking place over the past week or so, Brother Love, and in particular, just last week, we had for the very first time a president of these United States to be convicted of a felony, and that in the body of Donald Trump with the hush money trial. Now, you know, just going into it, you know, a lot of folks were wondering why it is that this trial was even going forward. Donald Trump, from the inception, was saying that this is a rigged trial, and he called what was going to happen. So it kind of dampened the blow of what was going to take place. But the more historic thing about this, Brother Love, the more historic thing is that, number one, you have a former president who at the time was president was impeached not once, but twice. You have a former president who has been indicted not once, not twice, but 4 times. Now you have a former president who has been found guilty of a felony, and this
34,
is
was it 34?
34 counts, all 34 counts. Now, but the more amazing part of that, Brother Love, is that after that happened, no one ran from him. If you really truly look at it, and it's amazing to hear even people in California saying that this doesn't change how they feel one way or the other. And I actually heard someone from California saying that if he feels that the jury got it wrong, that he has a right to appeal and to go forward. But Donald Trump raised millions upon millions of dollars after this guilty verdict.
Record breaking.
This is an unprecedented time that we're in. And the question was asked, you know, how is the black community responding to Joe Biden? And I think that the response that Donald Trump has gotten without there being a bump in the polls to Joe Biden is a clear indication that quite possibly the African-American community, the black community, has fallen out of love with the Biden administration and quite possibly is falling out of love with the Democratic Party.
Yeah, great. On that note, I mean, and 2 names I want to bring up, and I want to bring them up for a specific reason. Charlemagne the God, who has a syndicated radio show around the country, happened to be on The View, and he stood up to Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and the other ladies on The View. But what stuck out to me was what he said.
Okay.
And he said, you guys, you have people on your show, and you try to bully them into supporting Democrats.
Right.
And so
Right.
they push back on him and says, no, why won't you say publicly on your platform that Democrats are the better option for black folk, young black folk? And he says, I'm not going to tell you that because I don't believe that.
Very well done. Yeah.
Specifically.
Yeah.
But then let me go to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Killer Mike.
Okay.
Killer Mike had a different twist. Killer Mike said, you know what? He gonna go back to what his grandma told him.
Yeah.
And that was all politics is local.
That's
He
a
said,
statement, yeah.
he said, first you tell me who's your elected mayor in your city. Then you tell me who's your commissioner. Then you tell me who's your state rep. He says, work your way up the ladder. Tell me that you're familiar and you know and you've done your education about your local elected leaders before you go all the way to the top of the chain, because politics is local. What they do locally gonna impact you much quicker than what takes place in Washington.
I mean, that's a true statement. That is a true statement. But, you know, the other part of that, too, Brother Love, is when Joe Biden was running for president, when we talk about Charlemagne, it was on Charlemagne's show that Joe Biden said, and I don't know,
yeah.
I don't know why African Americans and black folks were not offended when this was said.
Mm-hmm.
But to paraphrase, and there was a lady that used to call the show when we were on the radio, and she and I used to go back and forth because she was a Joe Biden sympathizer.
Yeah.
And he said, if you don't vote for me, if you're trying to decide if it's between me and Donald Trump, you're not black.
Mm-hmm.
To basically intimate that if we're not voting for Democrats, we're not black.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard.
How did
because
Charlemagne react to that? I don't
he
remember.
didn't say anything. And that's why Larry Elder called him out on his own show, because he said when Joe Biden sat here and said that, you didn't correct him. And he did not correct him. And he should have been corrected then. I mean, go back and really and truly, and folks, when you talk about, you know, whatever you say about Donald Trump, you can almost say the same thing about Joe Biden. Because if you go back and you look at his history, and I've been saying this since before Joe Biden was nominated as the Democratic, was put in place as the Democratic nominee for president. I've said, look at his background and the things that he said in the past about African Americans. Look at the fact that under the Obama and Biden administration, there were fewer African Americans pardoned than under any other president. And these are things you can look to. And look at the words and the things he said. Now let's look at his policies. And what was most important to him, opening up the borders.
Yeah.
And putting African American communities at risk, because now you have an influx of individuals who are not from this country taking resources from American citizens, taking place and space from American citizens. Look at what happened in the school in New York.
And yeah, so I wanted you to get specific. When
Yeah.
you look at local taxpayers actually had to homeschool their children because those schools that taxpayers fund were being utilized to house undocumented individuals.
And it's still going on.
And it's still going on. But in addition to that, Greg, and you and I can go on and on. Dr. Light chimes in. But when you look at New York Mayor Eric Adams, that took $53 million of New York taxpayer dollars and converted them into gift certificates to give to individuals that, again, Greg, I mean, I got to say it. Man, look at what takes place at home first. There's a lot of people in need at home. But, and I'm not, you know, hey, to each his own, man. I want you to come and enjoy America, but I want you to do it
The right way.
the right way.
But listen, though, is it a coincidence, Brother Love, that in these areas where they are considered to be sanctuary cities, is what they are, and that's their sanctuary cities, that in these areas where they have sanctuary cities, that the individuals that come to those areas don't have to have identification to vote, don't have to have identification for a driver's license, and all these other things, because what Democrats are looking to do, right, and I want African Americans to be very clear about this, what Democrats are looking to do is that they're looking to replace the African American vote.
You're right. You're right.
As African Americans become wiser, as African Americans become more free thinking about who it is that they want to speak for them, the Democrats are looking for that next person looking for a handout.
Yeah, but and you know what, Greg? On that note, it's all right to call yourself a sanctuary city if you don't have to pay for it.
If
'Cause
taxpayers don't have to pay for it.
but when you look at these sanctuary cities, Eric Adams, New York, California is having the same
Chicago.
conversation. Chicago, and but man, I tell you, them black folk in Chicago ain't having it no more. But here's the topic. Those cities, those states are now saying the federal government should come in and provide them some relief. Greg, it's all right to become and call yourself a sanctuary city until you got to foot the bill.
I mean, what was it? Was it not Nantucket?
Martha's Vineyard? Yeah.
Martha's Vineyard. Oh, they started talking big. Oh, yeah, cinema. Yeah, we'll take care of it. And as soon as they get to Martha's Vineyard, what they do?
Hold it.
Yeah, the same thing that they were accusing Governor Abbott and Ron DeSantis of. They put those people on buses and sent them somewhere else.
But you know what, man? And here's where the rubber meets the road. When you look at taking away local resources from people who are paying taxes here, people who are in desperate need, when you're taking away those resources and you're saying that you're being generous, generosity starts at home. And so I got an issue with it. I mean, I'm not, and I think that's the problem. You don't have more folk that's speaking up, because if you speak up, people say, oh, your heart is not soft enough and compassionate enough. Yeah, my heart is soft and compassionate, but let's look at
Do it the right way, though.
Yeah,
At the
but
end of the day, do it the right way.
look at homeless population here. Look at veterans, man, that are living on the street. Man, come on.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's plenty that can be done here in the United States for individuals who are homeless, who are destitute, who are hungry. Their families, their children, who are effectively homeless, also because they're living. Because listen, just because someone lives in a extended stay hotel doesn't mean that they're not homeless.
You're right. You're
And I
right.
think that people have forgotten that. And people that go from house to house, I think I heard Dr. Light call one time, and it's funny when you hear it, but when you think about it, it's kind of sad. He called them hobosexuals because they have to live from place to place because they don't have nowhere to live.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is a real homeless crisis that we forget about, that we have in this country that has not been addressed.
Hey, can I steal one of those attorney Greg Jackson moments?
Go ahead.
Greg, when we were charged with the first violence task force, we didn't go in and start saying we need more enforcement, we need well, in part, we talked about law enforcement, we talked about programs, but the overarching topic that we talked about was economic development.
Absolutely.
If you don't have the ability to generate revenue, you can't get none of that stuff that you're talking about. And so, and I say to our good friend, Representative Bruce Anton, and the faith leadership that's organizing and setting up this unity in the community that's taking place this Wednesday, I say to them, it is going to be great to get all of that leadership in the room. But I'll say two things. Great leaders need to also learn how to follow.
Absolutely.
And I say that again.
Yeah.
Great leaders got to learn how to follow. And then the second thing that I will say, you're talking about this unity in the community, and I commend and applaud, and Greg and I, man, Batman and Robin, and I'm the Robin side. Let's do this. But let's have a doggone plan when you get that much influence and those folk that have the ability to touch people. Let's have a plan and let that plan be rooted in resources.
And stick to the plan.
Let's stick to the plan.
And you got to stick to the plan. When you have a plan in place, you have to stick with what it is that you're going to do.
And Greg, because you were the author. I mean, I was on the side making sure that we were able to coordinate, but you were the author of the community redevelopment plan that was put together, that was formulated in a white paper for the House and the Senate. That plan talked about generating TIF dollars for CRAs. Those TIF dollars were designed for affordable housing, were designed for weatherization, were designed for downtown development. All of those things generated some revenue.
Yeah.
So
I mean, but I mean, in all fairness, Brother Love, that white paper was a concerted effort, not just from you, not just
Community.
from myself, not just from Dr. Randy B. Nelson. I mean, that's how it kind of came back, but also from stakeholders in the community, from pastors to teachers to business owners to even the youth in the community,
Yeah.
high school students
You're
who
right.
came to express what was taking place in their communities, because that's what's important.
You're right. You're right. But Greg, I just got to say, and I'll say again, I mean, we're having this conversation about all these problems.
Yeah.
But we started Let's Talk Nation, and it was rooted in solutions.
Got to get results. But this is the one thing that I want to make sure that the Democratic Party understand. Well, no, that I want to make sure that African Americans understand at this point. If the African American vote, if the Democrats cannot depend on the African American votes, they cannot win. And right now, at this time, the Democrats have very little respect for the African American vote, as they have for the past 20, 30 years. They have very little respect for our vote. And I think that we need to make them earn our vote and earn our respect every single election cycle. This has been going on for years. And so, you know, just this past election, it was, some people say, oh, well, Trump only got 17% of the black male vote. That was huge. That was huge.
You're right,
Because
you're right.
before that point, I think it was maybe 5%. The fact that you had a 12% swing in the number of African-American males who are voting for a Republican, that should be a warning sign to Democrats that you need to pay closer attention to that voting bloc that you once could depend on that is now looking for somewhere else to call home.
You know what this sounds like?
What's that?
This sounds like confessions.
Confession.
Confessions.
What you talking about?
Because what you just articulated, Greg, you were talking about it from a Democratic perspective.
Right.
So I don't know if I'm going to say this is going to be testimony or confession.
Okay.
But if I had to go ahead and articulate, Greg, something that needs to take place, I would say my party, Republican Party, we often talked about that there's plenty of room underneath this tent.
Right.
We haven't been talking about that as of late. And we need to make sure that people realize and understand there is room underneath this tent. I hear folk talk about, you know, the Republican Party is not something that I subscribe to. And when I go back and say, well, people kind of vilify the word conservatism. But when you talk about less government in your personal life, keeping more money that you earn for yourself instead of taxes, when you talk about the fact that you have your particular faith and you don't want anybody to question that. And when you are having these conversations about being an entrepreneur and business development, Greg, there's not been, and I say this with all due respect, but there's not been any greater party when you talk about privatization, when you talk about capitalism and opportunity. What I would say to my party is that when we have these conversations about this tent, let's just not have the conversations. Let's look at making sure this tent is big enough for everybody to come underneath it. But at the end of the day, Greg, the rubber hits the road, man, when you actually look at what's taking place in communities.
Yeah. I mean, so listen. I mean, I think Doc, you know, kind of said it best. When we look at it, the African American community is one of the most conservative community bases out there, and so it's not a heavy lift to look at the Republican Party. Now, me, like I said again, I'm a Democrat. I've been a Democrat for several years now. But you know, the Democrat Party is not expressing the views and is not expressing and tending to the issues that my community finds important. And I mean, and listen, to that respect, I don't think any party is really doing that right now. And I think that African American voters that to some extent need to figure out who's going to be the person or the party that speaks for you. And listen, funny thing though, if I look at it though, I'm gonna tell you somebody who has a whole bunch of chutzpah though.
Who?
That Donald Trump has some chutzpah. Let me tell you, did you hear that when he went to the Libertarian Convention?
Oh, yeah. Great.
This
Great.
takes
He
some
told him, nominate him.
Yeah, listen, Donald Trump went to the Libertarian Convention and said, y'all, pretty much, I'm telling you, y'all may as well, y'all know y'all tired of losing.
Y'all know y'all tired of getting the 3%.
You know you're tired of losing. You nominate me to be your president, become a winner. That's what and listen, he was getting booed, and he said that he responded like,
You're right.
You know I'm right. Y'all need to nominate me as your presidential
The best
candidate.
line that I heard him say at that, Greg, was when he said, if you want to continue to get your 3% and go home, continue to do what you've always done and you get what you always got.
Listen, man, if you don't give Donald Trump credit for anything else, the man has some nerve.
Yeah,
He
I'll give him that.
To walk into somebody else's house and basically say, "Give me that." That's an interesting individual, man.
But Greg, man, I mean, I know we're winding down, but these are the kind of conversations, man, that we got to have. You know, and we got to have them respectfully.
Absolutely.
And we don't have no issue with the pushback,
No.
because that's what makes us better.
That's right. We talk about iron sharpening iron.
That's it.
And when we say that, we know that that iron is a hard substance, and in order to sharpen steel, iron has to rub against that steel. So no, listen, we don't have problems with the rough conversation. It don't bother us because we know at the end of the day it's going to make us stronger.
Okay, so Greg, we heard your testimony. You heard mine. You think Django got a testimony?
I don't know. He took his hat off. Can't talk to you. Put that hat on, Django.
Hey, Doc, where you at, buddy? You're on mute, man.
I'm in the background.
Hey, Doc, what's your thoughts, man?
I ain't got no thoughts right now.
He chewing on that fat back.
He
Yeah,
chewing-
he chewing
oh,
on
yeah,
that fat
yeah,
back. What
yeah.
he doing?
Hey, no, I hear y'all. And you know, the one thing you gotta expect from Donald Trump, he gonna say what he feeling.
No doubt.
And so I think that's his appeal. That's really his appeal. He say the quiet parts out loud, and people like that. And you know, we just got to look at the situation that we're in. As far as politics, I think we're in this is going to be a transformative election. I think coming up because we're going to have to decide some things.
Yeah.
Okay, the majority of Americans are going to have to make a decision. Do we continue to embrace liberalism or authoritarianism? And not authoritarianism in a bad way, because the thing about the Democrats is they want to be all things to all people, and you can't be a leader that way. You can't please everybody. And if you ever go to a Democratic event, you see that everybody got to have a say, or from their point of view, and it's all about their agenda rather than picking key issues and everybody standing with it.
You're right. You're right. Hey, Doc, you hit it right on the head, man. We can't continue to do the same thing and expect a different result. Hey, Greg, I got to hit you with a lightning round real quick.
What you got?
Okay, the Orlando District 5 runoff. Give me some information about that.
So the Orlando race was held a couple of weeks ago, and out of that race, they came the two top vote getters. One being Sharon Rose, the other being the gentleman that was on our show, Tavares McCurdy. And so on the 18th of June, they're going to have the runoff election to determine who is going to be the next commissioner for Orlando District 5.
Speak to me quickly about endorsements.
So, at this time, Sharon Rose has gotten the endorsement of the Orlando Sentinel twice. But here's the interesting thing about that. Back in 2021, Sharon Rose, when she ran against Regina Hill, did not get the endorsement of the Orlando Sentinel, although they felt that she was too closely aligned to or like Regina Hill, that they didn't feel that she deserved the endorsement. They did endorse Mr. McCurdy back in 2022, touting him as a vocal advocate for the community and saying all of these nice praise things about him. But then when he's running against Sharon Rose, all of a sudden, all of that goes out the window. And they don't have anything nice to say about him. And so it tends to make me believe that the endorsement of the Orlando Sentinel in this particular case is worth the paper that is written on and distributed, which ain't a whole lot right now.
Good enough. Michigan parents, Crumblies. Give me an update.
Listen, so this happened about 2 months ago. I don't know if y'all remember the shooting of the guy, the high school shooting in Michigan. This is the first ever case where the parents have been criminally liable for the actions of their child. And so they're going to spend between 10 and 15 years in prison because they made available and did not safeguard weapons in their homes that this young man took to the school and shot and killed several of his classmates and a teacher.
Do you see this impacting the rest of the country?
Yes, absolutely, and it should, as well as it should. It's too many parents, especially in the African American community and other communities. Let me say underserved. I don't want to say I don't want to speak on black folks because I'm black. Who say I can't do nothing with that child. He's out of control. I can't do nothing with him. Well, guess what? If now you're going to be criminally liable for what that child does, it's going to make you take more responsibility to make sure that that child doesn't do what he has to do, or to make sure that wherever he or she needs to be to ensure that you're not in prison in their place or along with them, that you take those actions and not just sit back and think, I can't do nothing with him, and wash your hands and give them to the streets.
In 30 seconds, Greg, we used to do, it's 9 o'clock. Do you know where your child is? Do you think this is going to have any impact on the local community? We can talk about politics across the country, but how is that going to impact this community?
And when people hear about this and they know more about the potential of parents being liable for the criminal acts of their children, it will have a tremendous impact. And when people say it's 9 o'clock, do you know where your children are? They're going to start looking.
They're going to start looking.
They're going to start looking because, listen, when they start realizing, hey, that might be me behind bars because of them, listen, better you than me. I don't care who you are. I ain't going to jail for nobody.
But nobody. Hey, with that being said, you can tune in every Monday from 7 to 8 o'clock for Let's Talk Nation. You'll hear the general. You'll also hear myself. And sometime we even have Doc Polite to chime in with his nice hat on.
AKA the
Jay-
Django.
Hey, Greg Jackson, brother, you do not have to get out of here.
But you got to get out of here.
What you just said? You don't have to go home, but
You got to get out of here.
Hey, we'll see you next time on Let's Talk Nation. Appreciate you.